everyone. Welcome to Talks on Tuesday. I'm Chelsea and I'm hosting today, and I'm here with Barbara and Mary, Julie, and our guests Renee, Gino, Anka, and Gordy. And our topic today is dreams. And I posted on Facebook a few minutes ago a quote, one of my favorite quotes by Gillian Fleer it's not really an official quote. Hi, Cecilia.
Hi,
But I wrote it
Cecilia.
down. I wrote this quote down one day in our Solomon Speaks study group. And the quote is: the dream repeats itself because it forgets itself. That's why it repeats itself. That was a quote by Gillian Fleer. But I think it just references why do we have repetitive dreams? Why do we dream the same thing over and over? And maybe it is because we forget ourself, our ourself as we are represented in body form. But I want today's topic to be really quite generalized in whatever dream topic you really want to talk about. We came up with this topic yesterday, and so when I went to bed, I thought, okay, I'm gonna, kind of go into that halfway state and have somewhat sort of an intention on what I would like to dream about. And what came to me was um, maybe being dropped back in time with my grandparents. Maybe we're just hanging out in the living room and I'm 5 years old and they're just around and we're just doing the normal thing. And I thought that would be just lovely to have a dream about. And I do that occasionally. Have dreams about my grandparents, of course. But unfortunately, last night I didn't really remember my dreams or anything. And I didn't really pop into the, you know, ideal grandparent situation that I truly had. I just had the greatest grandparent granddaughter relationship. And it was also very good with my grandfather. Of course, when it came to my grandfather, we kind of kindled our very, very close relationship much later in life. But self reflection brought me to the point of why did I need to have that desire of a dream? And I think it's because, honestly, in this life as Chelsea, I'm a tad bit disappointed in my new relationship as grandma. And I do have two grandsons, and it's not the same. Right now, it's just different. There has a lot to do with the relationship with their parents and my daughter, that's their mother. But I just self reflected on that. And honestly, I don't think we're ever really going to have the same dynamic twice in our life. I think we have, it's just very, very unlikely. I think whatever relationship I have with my grandkids is never really going to be exactly the same. And I can dream it to be, but a dream is not real. And so it's, for me, today's topic is just kind of evolved into, yes, we have dreams and or we have ideals, but we also have loving and being at peace with exactly like things are in our waking moments, and um, accepting things for the new gifts that present themselves, and lessons, and just new ways of dealing with life, and being stretched and challenged in those different ways. What do you guys think?
Go on, Mary.
It's okay. Well, it's interesting that you should bring that up, that sort of dream. And dream is one of those things that there's so many interpretations of, not to mention dream interpretation. There are crazy quilt kind of dreams that are just this hodgepodge of the day's events or nightmares. There's also predictive dreams. You might dream of the future, and then you might get a dream too that is like a message, like a direct message from somewhere else. So just this very notion of the kinds of dreams we have is just so interesting when you say that word. Last week we were talking about soul, and we had all those different interpretations, but dream is the same kind of thing. And when I think about what I dream, it's I always look for a message in it.
Yeah.
So this is very interesting that this topic came up. And I agree with what you say, Mary, about the different kinds of dreams. And I dream, but lately I've been saying, I can't remember I get bits and pieces all day long. And I want like a dream that's clear and that I can remember and look for a message, you know. This dream that I had I think is about connection, a serendipitous sort of dream. So I dreamt. I have a very, very good friend named Clara, and she lives in Costa Rica. I've known her for like over probably 40 years, something like that. We were young when we met. And she has a business in in LA, and it's a wellness business, and a lot goes on. She's always been like this businesswoman. And so I had this dream about her that she was talking. She puts videos on Instagram all the time, and she's, talks and blah, blah, blah. And she was talking, and I said, oh my God, she's going to fall over. She was leaned back, and I had this feeling that she was going to fall back over wherever she was. And in fact, she did. She fell back and dropped down, and I didn't know what the drop was. I went running over to look down, and it was this sheer drop straight down, way, 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 way down. And she fell on her back. And I went running down there, and I went, oh my God, Clara, you know, are you okay? But she said, my head hurts. So anyway, that was like a night, not last night, but the night before. So last night I said to Joe, I got to call her because I just have to make sure she's okay. And I called her, and she happened to be in LA, not Costa Rica. And I was telling her about the dream. I said, oh, good, you're okay. And she says, God, that is so bizarre, though, because I've been struggling with my business, whether or not I should keep it in LA, and I'm always in Costa Rica. Anyway, she says, I'm really just, she says to me, my head hurts. And we both just went, oh my God. And I think that for me, what the connection was is that I mean, who knows? Was I picking up on her stress or her anxiety? But there was just this connection that we had to make her realize when I called her, that when I spoke with her, I helped her, from the things that I said, and made her I talked about surrender, and she knows who Michael Singer is. And, it was just, she was so happy that I had called her and told her this. It was like this really serendipitous sort of experience. And I just felt, the word connection to me is what this dream was about. So that was that kind of dream. And it was good for me. I got the clarity of a dream that I wanted. You never know what you're going to get in a box of chocolates. uh, yeah, it was very
Now,
cool.
Julie, do you believe that even though you had that dream that, you know, that on one plane of existence, that dream and your being with her was 100% an experience you both had together in another dimension? You know what I mean?
Could be. I mean, who knows? That's what I mean. It's like, okay, what does that mean that I had dreamt that? I mean, it was so crystal clear, the dream, and which I had asked for. I said, I want a dream that I can really remember and that means something, having no idea that this is the kind of meaning that it would come to, And so, yeah, I mean, we have parallel dimensions. It could be. But what also was really nice is that she could acknowledge that there was this wonderful connection, and she was very open to that, and it was really great. Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, Cecilia.
Hi, everybody. So good to see you all.
Hi, Cecilia.
Well, I have been listening to some wonderful wisdom, and it came to me several months ago that well, I had imagined this to be so, but when it was spoken out loud, it felt real. And I believe that, we need to sleep. We absolutely need to sleep. That's part of who we are. If we didn't sleep, we would go crazy. We need to sleep. We need to go back. But it was also expressed in a way that because we are mostly spirit and we're just playing in these body suits. So when we sleep, we're actually waking up. And when we are here, we're dreaming. So this is a dream. And we get to choose how we would like to play this out and imagine anything is possible because we're dreaming right now. And I loved that. And I know that when I have dreamt, I, like Mary, like to understand the meaning of that dream. And I know that there's a lot of symbology in that. And I know there's a lot of interesting things. And I think it's so much fun because when I'm dreaming, when I have those dreams where I'm flying or I'm moving really quickly or I'm transporting from one dimension to another dimension, it's really, really fun. And I love that that's the reality and this is a dream. So don't take it so seriously because this is only temporary. This is only just a very instantaneous moment for us. So enjoy and play because this is what we're dreaming right now. So I just wanted to throw that out there. What do you think about that?
I like that perspective or that truth, It's good reminder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard that too.
Oh, go ahead, Barbara.
Oh, I just wanted to agree with what Cecilia was saying. I've heard that also, and that perspective. And to me, while we're in this physical presence, it's something that we can just play with, like you say. And once we do our transition, we'll know more, I think, for sure. But yeah, I think there's so much more to it than what's physical and obvious.
Yeah, and then it's interesting that in the dream state we can go from one location to another like instant, or we can have what we would call superpowers, being able to fly or float in the air
Breathe
around above.
underwater. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or never mind. That was really what I was going to say is, well, I've jumped before that it's something violent, but like I'm getting hurt, but I don't feel it. You know, or I'm going to die, but I don't die. You know, that was what just popped into my head. Kind of weird.
Yeah, I've had a
Go
couple
ahead, Barbara.
interesting dream experiences, and kind of thinking about what Julie was saying as far as the connection. I've been involved in a number of research projects with ARE, which is the Association for Research and Enlightenment, the Edgar Cayce Institute in Virginia Beach, and they all have dream studies. And the way it works is one person, you get a group of people who don't know each other, but they connect through email, and they're all anonymous. And one person is chosen by the coordinator to be like the subject, I guess, and they have an issue that they want help being resolved. And then everybody else, before they go to bed, they make a statement, kind of like what you were thinking, Julie. I want to remember my dream tonight, and I want to help so and so, and I want to dream some kind of resolution for this person, and then would go to sleep and then wake up and write down our dream and send it to the coordinator or the person who was the facilitator, and they would compile them all and then put them together and send it out to the group. And then the person who had the question would share what their question was, and we would look at how common, if at all, the responses were. And I've done this maybe 3 or 4 times, and it's just fascinating how everybody comes, of course, from a different perspective, but when you look at all the responses, they all in some ways have a similar kind of theme almost of a response to whatever the person's question was. And again, it's that being asleep, and yet that being conscious connection of, the whole of all that is. And maybe that is, the actual awake state. And but it's been fun. And I've been in a couple dreams where these bizarre things are happening, and I'll think, this can't be real. I've got to be dreaming. And then sure enough, I'll wake up and it's like, okay. And and then I've had a couple incidences where people who I knew were getting ready to transition, and I've kind of dreamt about them, or one person actually had already, and you dream about them, and then you find out that they just recently. In fact, one person I had a dream. I was with a friend of mine, and I was going to commit suicide, and I was trying to explain to them why, and they were like, "It's okay. You don't have to. I'm going to support you no matter what you do. It's all right." And then I was going to reach out to them a few times, and I got busy with work and didn't. And a couple of days later, I found out that they had died, and there was kind of these, interesting circumstances. But, and then there's been a couple of times when I've connected with people that I felt wasn't really a dream. They had also had transitioned off this planet, and I saw them, and they were very real. And it didn't feel like a dream. It felt like just a different type of connection. Um, in fact, one person looked very different because I knew her as an older woman, and when I saw her, she was very young, and yet I knew who she was, and we were kind of talking, and it was just so interesting. So those are the things
That is,
yeah.
that
I mean,
is
there's just so much to
interesting.
play with. It is kind of a great topic, and everyone's experiences, I think, are so interesting.
I remember one really profound dream I had probably like 20 years ago. And if I ever put all my little red flags towards my spiritual journey, I would include this dream, which was, in the dream, I knew everybody in my life, and everybody in my life was in my dream, but I knew everybody in my life was just playing a part to make. And I was like the one person in the play that didn't know that everybody else was an actor in the play. And it was so, that real dream was so real. And I woke up and I bawled for an hour just thinking of like, wow, that is probably telling me a little bit of like actual truth of what we're really doing here. You know, we kind of we forget that we came to play certain roles in certain other people's lives, little soul
Mm,
contracts, or I'll be the one that kind of seems like the bad guy that has the problem, and I'll cause issues for you, but you'll grow.
mm.
And yeah, yeah. Go ahead, Gino. Would love to hear what you'd have to say.
Yeah, harkening back to one of your first comments about dreams and how, before you go to sleep, you would want to have a dream about your grandmother. And there are different kinds of dreams. I'm not really well versed on dreams, but I remember several years ago reading a book about dreams, and one category is called vivid dream. And vivid dreams, for me, I remember for a fair amount of time. And then there's some that I remember seems like forever, which is usually those are so beautiful and so wonderful. I love remembering those. It's not some awful thing where I was knifed or something. Um, but I did have a dream about my grandmother quite a few years ago when I was just a child. My mom would drop me off to stay with her for the day, and she would make oatmeal for me, which I loved. My mom didn't make oatmeal. I always got a box of cereal. And she was a baker and a cook and all this great food. I just loved going to her house. And we would sit and watch Perry Mason. I don't know if you know who Perry Mason is, but
Yeah.
old TV show. And we would play a game and we would guess if that person was guilty or not, or who was guilty. And I would never guess right. And
Fun.
she was 100% right every time. I'll never forget it. This is, how did you do that? And then she'd have to explain to me why I was wrong and everything. And then one other dream that is very precious to me is my father, who passed away in 2011. It was probably a couple of years later. He was Italian, which you can tell by his name, Vito Murillo. Doesn't get more Italian. In fact, when people say to me, something mean, I said, watch out. My dad's name is Vito. Okay. So, but anyway, that dream was short and sweet. And we were standing on the coast where there was sand and everything. And there were like 4 or 5 nuns dressed in their habits and everything. And they were playing and jumping around and so happy in the water. And my dad, his face was so smiling and he had tears coming down his eyes. He was so happy. And what better dream can I have than to see my father so wonderfully happy? So dreams can be precious as well. And I don't dream dreams anymore that I remember. I think partially because I have interrupted sleep patterns due to a physical issue I have. But I have a lot of dreams. And I wake up and I say, can I remember that? No, you can't remember that. It's over. Thanks a lot. I got a half a second. So maybe that will return later.
Very. I have another story, a dream story, and for some reason it feels like I said this already, but that I shared it already recently. But anyway, if I did, you can stop me. And it's a prophetic dream. I was a little girl. I was a little girl when I dreamt it, and I dreamt that I was playing hopscotch, and a wasp came up and said, "I'm going to sting you." And then stung me in the back of my leg, back of my knee. And anyway, next day I went to school and I was playing hopscotch. And I could feel the sash of my dress hanging down, and I thought it was kept hitting my leg. And then all of a sudden I got stung by a wasp. So, you know, I mean, I'll never forget that because it was so bizarre. And I went, oh my God, I dreamt that it was going to happen. He told me he was going to sting me. So, who knows how, I mean, I was young. I just thought that was really cool. And that was that. What does it mean? It means that it was a premonition. I don't know, you know. Mayor?
Yeah, I was going, Gordy just put in the chat that he rarely remembers his dreams either, like Gino. And gosh, when I was first teaching, one of the first classes I taught was psychology. And I started the year by asking the kids to keep a dream journal. And they were very resistant, but they did it. And they had trouble. But then after about 3 weeks, they started waking up when they were dreaming and writing things down. It's as if having the journal triggered them. And eventually they started complaining that they couldn't get any sleep because they were constantly waking up to record their. So if you want to remember your dreams, you might just start keeping a journal wise, let them lay below the surface.
Or another suggestion is what we would do right before I was part of this study is when you went to bed, you set your intention and said, I'm going to remember my dreams tonight and then, make that as an intention. But I remembered hearing all the talk about various dreams. I woke up one time, it was a really fascinating dream, and I was really enjoying remembering it as I was lying in bed. And then I went back to sleep and I was thinking, I want to continue this dream, which I've never done. But my next dream, I woke up again later and I dreamt that I was making a movie about the first dream. And it was so interesting.
That is great.
Yeah, it was wild.
Yeah. Can I tell you my favorite dream?
Yes.
This is the dream I call the dream of baby Gerard. And I dreamed I was with my sister and her daughter, Jennifer, and there was a baby laying flat on a table. And my sister said, that baby is baby Gerard. I said, okay. Baby Gerard smiled at me like this, like it's enormous. And he's like 3 months old, but he had this huge smile and he lifted up his arms. And I leaned down and he put his arms around me and kissed me. Like a 3-month-old baby couldn't do that. And he said, tell Owen, that's Jennifer's 12-year-old son, that I am back. And where we live now in Oregon is very beautiful, but it's not as beautiful where we lived in 1831. And then he said, tell Owen I'm here to watch him. So my sister the next day, and she told her daughter and her grandson that baby Gerard is around. Tell Owen he's okay.
Did
Who's
Owen have
Owen?
any memory of who?
Owen's my nephew.
Oh,
Did he have any memory of who baby Gerard was?
Not. He's at that age where he would go,
Okay.
but I always tell young people these things because they may brush it off now or appear to brush it off, but it kind of gives them a little tweak about possibility.
I agree.
wanted to
Appearing to brush it off. He's listening.
Cecilia also mentioned in the chat the movie, the Jim Carrey movie, The Truman Show. I love that movie, and I rewatched it recently. Yeah.
It's a great
And
movie.
then I rewatched The Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. And that's kind of a depressing movie, but I see a lot in it. But if you haven't seen The Truman Show, it's definitely recommended.
Yeah.
Anka, we didn't get to hear from you or Renee, but next time we'll be here, same place, same time next week. And if there's anything on dreams you want to extend to that get together, we can. And for all that are watching this on our YouTube channel, thank you so much. And don't forget to hit subscribe and tell your friends. I shared with some people in our San Diego program this past weekend that for reconnective healing, and they may be watching in replay. So hi, but thanks everyone for joining us, and see you next week. Love to all.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanksgiving.
Bye-bye.